Okay, and we're back. And it's COMP2068. It's the winter 2016 semester, and we're week one, lesson one, part four of our broadcast. And we kind of hammered out some of the problems with Bower. Bower was a big block for some of us in last semester as well. Bower wouldn't work. We had way worse problems than before, and the machines in front of you are actually a little bit more flexible, so they're allowing stuff to happen that before just wouldn't happen, no matter how hard we tried. The challenge is when, and this is when we're being web developers, right? Every system is different, right? You might have had Visual Studio 2013, 2015, something that's blocking you from using TypeScript, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing we can do about it. So there's a couple things we can do if you can't fix your problems in the future. One is run a VM, right? So you can run a virtual machine. The machine in front of you actually has VMware, right? So you could create a small VM that you carry around with you in your pocket and on a USB drive. You could certainly buy like 64 gig, USBs or whatever, or even 128 now, no problem. And it'll hold a nice VM for you that'll run cleanly, and it'll be a clean environment for you to do your web development. That's one option. So that's one. The other thing is, and some people do this, is they run TeamViewer, right? TeamViewer, and they run it remotely, so they control their machine at home from here, and that's fine, right? So you can certainly do that, right? If you're doing that kind of thing. It doesn't matter to me as long as you get your work done, right? It's your development environment. To me, I'm just trying to help you out to try and get you to the latest and greatest tools. So we've done TypeScript. We've installed that. We've installed Bootstrap with Bower and with jQuery, right? That's what we've done. But we haven't really connected it. So let's go back into our file, right, with Visual Studio code. And in our index.html, it's kind of incomplete, right? We want to kind of connect everything now, right? So remember that we need an index.html to connect everything on the front end, right? That's how it all connects together, right? So I want to put a comment here. This is our CSS section, right? And this is where we're going to put our CSS. We're going to look at the scripts lib folder, right? And we're going to go into our Bootstrap, and we're going to go into the dist CSS. This is the path, right? And we're going to go bootstrap.min.css. That's what we need. And how do I type that? Well, I need a link, and I'm going to go scripts lib bootstrap dist CSS, and it's going to be bootstrap.min.css. Okay, cool. And that's our first CSS file. That's our Bootstrap file. I'm just looking inside of our distribution, right, for Bootstrap. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, but I want my Bootstrap theme, bootstrap-theme.min.css. So I'm just going to copy this one and paste it underneath it. So copy, paste, -theme, save. So Bootstrap is in. If Font Awesome, if you've installed Font Awesome, and remember I asked you to do a bunch of different things, and sometimes what happens is when I look in my lib folder, I don't see all of my updates. Like if I go to my actual file system, let's take a look. Open in Reveal in Finder or Explorer, right? And if I look at my actual files, like on the operating system, and if I look in scripts lib, right, notice that I have Font Awesome, jQuery, and Bootstrap, and here it just appeared. Here's Font Awesome. Sometimes it happens that way. It's a little bit behind. Be patient. Open source, right? Okay, so what do we need here? We need another link for Font Awesome. It's got to go underneath the Bootstrap stuff. If it goes above, it'll be killed. So link, and inside there you're going to go scripts, lib. Instead of Bootstrap, it's going to be font-awesome. And under Font Awesome, as you can see, it's a CSS. And then it's font-awesome.min.css. And what's Font Awesome? Font Awesome is it's a font library. So for those people who don't know it, it's a really cool font library that we can use. If I go to Font Awesome. If I go to Font Awesome, you use icon fonts, right, for the web. And instead of using images, icon fonts is la mode, you know, right now. That's what we do. We don't use images. Images are too heavy duty, so we use Font Awesome. And that's why I wanted you to include this in your, what we're doing, we're creating almost like a little boilerplate for ourselves for today, right? And so we can use Font Awesome in our code. Okay, so it's just a little tool set that we just added in. But I wanted to show you how to do that with Bower. That was the real key here, right? Okay, cool. Well, you know what? This is all good and everything else, but I need to, whenever I use TypeScript, I want to use some external libraries sometimes, like jQuery, and I want to get code hinting for jQuery or Node or whatever, right? But in order for me to get code hinting for another outside library, I need something called a type definition library or type definition file for each file. And in the past, we used to go and get it from definitely typed, right? So if I type in definitely typed by itself, not the TSD here, but definitely typed by itself. Let's just get rid of this. And of course, it doesn't work. Definitely typed. Yeah. And if I look at the GitHub, definitely typed is what I want to go to. You get this. You get this big GitHub folder. And you'd have to go through and search for your jQuery in here, or Angular, or whatever, and to get a type definition file. And there's hundreds of type definition files in here, right? It'll take you forever to get it, download it, install it, and keep it up to date. Luckily, there's TSD. So we have to install that now. That's a new one. So we want to go to definitely typed with TSD, and we want to install it with npm install tsd-g. That's the next one. And you think we'd be done after this, huh? No. Nope. So TSD, right? It's like this: npm install tsd-g, and that'll install. -g means install the module globally. When I do -g with npm, npm is the Node package manager. It grabs stuff for the front end, right? And it installs it for us so we can use it. It's different than Bower. So Bower is our package manager for front-end technologies. npm is our package manager for back-end technologies. TSD is our package manager for TypeScript technologies, right? That's how it goes, baby, right? Right? That's how it is. I love it. One day, in the future, I really see this. I want to be like Nicholas Tesla, who said, like, one day in the future, none of this will exist, right? And it'll be one system where we don't have to do all this craziness, right? The reason why people love and hate JavaScript is all because of this, right? They love it because it's cool. You have these little tools to do everything you do, and they hate it because you have all these little stupid tools and you don't know where they all are, right? So, but it's part of us being developers. We have to learn this new technology, this workflow, and this pipeline. We're actually creating a pipeline for us to create our applications, right? Okay, so we've got TSD as an example, and I want to install some type definition libraries for jQuery as an example, right? I want to use jQuery. I want to get some typing. Let me show you what it looks like without the type definition library. So I want to go to my app.ts and see where I have my console log, right? I want to start using some jQuery. Remember, for jQuery, I want to do this: $document, right? And I get nothing. And I see how I get nothing. I get no code hinting, and it doesn't bring up anything, right? That's crap, man. I want code hinting when I do my stuff. I'm used to C#. I'm used to Java. I don't want to do this. This is nothing, right? Hence TypeScript. That's why we're using it the majority of it. Right? Let's try this out. So I want to install some modules, and the way to do that is tsd install jQuery --save. Right? And if everything goes well, and if you've installed TSD properly, it's going to go fetch jQuery, the type definition library for jQuery, and install it in something called typings. Here's typings. Notice how we have jQuery as a type definition library, and this is what it looks like. it goes through and it tells me every piece of jQuery and what it can do for you. So it gives me all the code hinting, all the IntelliSense, if you will, is right here in these files, right? But I need to link these files together. And in order for me to do that, this tsd.d.ds file that I get with my typings, when I use TSD for the first time, I've got to reference it. Okay. TSD. So if I'm going to go to my app.ts and I want to reference a file that's inside of my typings, what's my path? Anybody? I want to reference this file here, tsd.d.ts. What's my path? Well, let's show you. So I need to use the triple forward slash, right? Triple forward slash. This is a Microsoft thing. Open bracket, open or less than sign, if you will, right? Reference path equals to, in quotation marks, up one, so we're at the root, right? Or actually, yeah, up one, we're at the root. And then we're in typings, and we're down to tsd.d.ts. Now you might see this is weird syntax, but what this is actually creating a reference path for all my typings. So my typings file itself, right, if I was to save this thing, my typings, which is right here, tsd.d.ts that I referenced over here, it looks like this. And I'm going to pull it into onto the right side by splitting my editor. Watch. Here's my editor, and over here I'm going to bring this in. This is what it looks like. So notice how it brings in jQuery here. So all I'm doing is referencing this because this is going to have all of my typings in here for jQuery, for Node, for Express, for Mongo, for whatever. I'm going to put it all in here. I don't want to put all those in the top of my file. I want to reference one file that references them all. Okay? Okay, so now that I have this, right, and if I save everything, and if I transpile for a second, so Command-Shift-B, Control-Shift-B, right, just for a second, just to make sure everything connects properly. And now if I go here and start typing, and I start $, right, and if I spread Control Space, no suggestions. If I start typing document, right, now you got to give it a second sometimes, right, because the problem is that jQuery is here, right, it's part of our path, but we have to give it a second to connect, because this is what this does. What it does is connects jQuery in there. In the meantime, while this is doing its business in the back end, let's go in here and grab some other ones. All right, so I want Bootstrap. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. So tsd install, right, Bootstrap, because maybe we can fool around with that too. You know, minus save. It's going to go out to the web, grab Bootstrap, put it in its place, and now take a look what it's done. Our type definition is here for Bootstrap as well, right? So not just the TSD, but for Bootstrap. Save. I'm just going to exit out of these things. Sometimes you have to exit out and come back. And I'm going to do a Command Shift or Control Shift B just to transpile to make sure that I've got everything going. And I'm going to go back into my app.ts file. And again, we should start getting some code hinting pretty soon. Hey, see what I'm talking about? Watch. Document dot. And well, it didn't work. But eventually it will. Eventually it'll get like all the code hinting that I want for my .ready and so on. Document.ready. It will. Just give it some time. Okay, the other thing is that I want to show you what TypeScript can do. So why TypeScript, right? Because we can use JavaScript all day and get some code hinting with JavaScript too. But the thing with TypeScript is it's very clean when it comes to object-oriented programming. Who knows about object-oriented programming in the class? Hopefully some of you. Yay! I had a class that didn't put up their hand. That was bad, right? So, anyways, let's just go like this. So in my app.ts, I want to create after my app started, I want to create a person class, right? And typically, what we do when we create a person class in C# is do something like this, right? We say class person, right? And in my person class, right, I want to have some kind of constructor function, right? This should seem somewhat familiar to you. And in my constructor function, I want to assign a property, typically. Like, for example, I might have a name property, my person's name, which is of type string, right? There we go. And what I want to say is I want to also, in my constructor, when I create my person object, I want to take in a name, which is also of type string. Hey, you know what? This is cool, but I want to make my name private. Let's make it private. And when we do private variables in this class, as a convention for me, please add an underscore in the beginning. All right, so private name. So we know that it's a private to the class only. So then I can do something like this. I can use the this keyword. This dot underscore name is equal to name, right? That's pretty straightforward stuff, right? Okay, cool. And you would understand that if you understand object orientation, you see this pattern many times, right, with the constructor. Except it may not be called constructor. It might be called the same name as the function, person, right? In TypeScript, you use this. So let's say these are, we're going to make some comments. These are our private instance variables here, right? Private instance variables. There we are. And this is where my constructor lives, down here. So here's my constructor function, right? My constructor function. This is nice and understandable, yeah? And you know what? For every person, I think every person should be able to speak and walk, right? So let's add at least a speak method. So we'll say it's a public speak method, and the method doesn't take any parameters, and it's going to return void. These are all common things you might see, right? And what is it going to do? It's going to say a console.log, and we're going to say the name of the person, so this dot underscore name, right, plus concatenation, space, says hello, right? So, I mean, does anyone not understand, by looking at this code, if you've never seen TypeScript before, can you not understand what this is doing? Anyone? Please put up your hand now, but this is the time to speak, right? Does it look like anything you've never seen before is what I'm saying, right? This is like C#, like Java, like other languages you may have seen, other C-influenced languages, right? So if you're a C# person, then TypeScript for you is like, no problem, right? All right, and now let's make sure that these are our, we kind of highlight, these are our public functions, public methods. That's what these are. Okay, cool. Well, I've made a person class, but I don't have a person object, right? I need to instantiate a person object. How do I do that, right? So to instantiate a person object, of course, I've got to declare a person object. And when we declare variables in TypeScript, we use the var keyword, right? So we go var, and we say my person. So we're going to call me Tom, let's say, as an example. You can call yourself your name if you want. Tom is equal to a new, we're going to use a new keyword, person, capital P. Look at the code hinting I'm getting, guys. And in my person, notice that it's asking me for a string, right? Because that's my constructor. My constructor required a string, so therefore it's asking me for one, right? Code hinting. And it gives me this underline, this ugly underline, like we get it in Visual Studio for C# or for Java in Eclipse. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm going to put in my name, so I'll put it in as Tom because it's expecting a string. And I want to make Tom do something, so I'm going to say tom.speak as my method. Nice and easy, right? But hold on a second. What type is Tom? If I hover over Tom, it says Tom is of type person, right? And I can I can use type inference to find out what type my variable Tom is, my object, or I can be explicit and put in the type like this. So I can say, person. And oftentimes we may want to do that. Because if we do this, we can break up when we declare the variable compared to when we instantiate the variable, the object, right? We want to break those two things up, and so therefore it's better for us to get pure code hinting. We want to do one of these so we can get our code hinting, so it knows it's a person. Okay, cool. So I want to transpile this. So Command-Shift-B, Control-Shift-B on the PC, and when I do that, if I've got everything correctly, let's do a split screen. And I want to see what it looks like on the JavaScript side. Okay, and I'm just going to do one of these, and beautiful, ugly, right? Beautiful, I don't know, yeah. That's why we use TypeScript. Because I can write pure, clean JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript actually, right? By creating an object-oriented approach to writing a language. When I want to write large applications, and that's why TypeScript and AngularJS go hand in hand. We use TypeScript because in a large application scenario, we want to have access to classes. We want to have access to more powerful tools. We want to have access to code hinting. Let's see this run now. We've made it. We've got some good code hinting. And I don't know for you, but for me, this looks nice and nice, and this is challenging to look at, right? You don't understand what's going on for some of you. For example, with this whole idea of prototype. Prototype is a property that belongs to the person function that's inside of a person function, which is inside of a closure, which is self-executing. Right. And that's what I'm saying. It can be quite daunting if you look at this for the first time, right? So imagine when we're doing something like Node.js on the back end, where all you're doing is anonymous functions in anonymous functions within anonymous functions. It's bad. It can be quite challenging to look at and infuriating for students when you first look at it. Okay, so let's run this thing now to make sure it works, right? We never run this thing forever, like at all, not even our bootstrap piece. We don't even know if it runs. Let's see what happens. So how do I run this? So I'm going to kind of pull this over. For a lot of what we're going to do, right, on the front end, if we didn't have a back end, you can run a little server, and I highly recommend that when you're running this stuff, to simulate what it's like to be on a real server. So we're going to install another piece of software. So on the front, we're going to go, npm install, right, and it's going to be http-server, right, and it's going to be -g because we want to put it on the global space, right, and press enter. What this is going to do is going to create a little server for us. So when I do http-server by itself and press enter, it's going to start a server running on 8080, right? A local little server for me, right, where I can do my testing. So now when I go to my browser, and if I go localhost 8080, I should get hello world. Okay, I'm going to show you that again. So all I did was I said, hey, let's install HTTP server, and then let's run it. It has to be run inside the folder that you have your project. Are you good? Huh? You're okay?
Yeah, I'm just waiting.
Waiting to install. Oh, slow system. But you see what's going on? It's giving me some responses, right, to what I'm doing. In fact, when we do Node.js, it's all about requests and responses. I send a request out when I do a get. When I get stuff from the server, right? And by the way, I probably will ask you this question next week, right? So if I do, it's about requests and responses. So I go up online and I request a web page. I request it from where? The server, right? So I request the page from the server, and it gives me a response, right? That's what's happening. So it's a series of request responses, right? That's what's happening, right? With Node, we're using JavaScript on the back end to give you those request responses, right? Instead of PHP or IIS, ASP.NET, whatever, right? We're using JavaScript on the back end to do that. And we're using a single thread as opposed to a multi-threaded application, which actually performs a lot better. So notice how I'm getting these GET requests, right? These requests for each one of my files. If I'm requesting Bootstrap as an example, or all these different requests for different things, it's responding. And if I don't have my favicon, which I don't, right, it's going to respond with a 404. So there's different responses I can shoot back. I can respond with the status code, 200 being a good status code, 404 being bad, right? We don't want to see a 404 or a 500 or something crazy like that, right? And we're going to talk about that when we get into Node. Node is all about request responses and creating a small little application that allows us to create the backend like this. Okay, cool. Well, let's test this thing out, right? Like we just made a person class. Where do I see that? Well, it's in the console. So I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to go to Inspect. And if everything went well, if I click on the console, it says fail to load resource, 404 not found, localhost favicon. And well, how come? What happened? How come my person didn't run? What happened?
Sorry.
That's okay. Like my person is supposed to print out to the console, yeah.
We didn't include it in the script tags.
Okay, let's see. Did we? Let's take a look. And I'm glad you said that because it's important for us to understand how our files are working. If I look at my index.html, and let's not look at it here, let's look at it here, right? I've included it, I've got nothing included from a script tags perspective, right? We need to add the next piece, which is our JavaScript section. So let's add that in. So we'll say this was our JavaScript section. And we're going to do a script tag, and we're going to say our source for our first file is jQuery. That's why we're not getting jQuery hinting. Remember I was asking, how come we're not getting jQuery? Because we didn't include it in the file, right? So we got to add that in. We're going to say, well, where is it? It's under scripts lib jQuery, right? Dist jQuery min.js. All right, so that's where it is. So I'm going to say scripts lib jQuery dist jQuery.min.js. So that's jQuery for you. Let's do the next one. So script source, and we'll do scripts lib, and now instead of jQuery we're going to do Bootstrap, right? Because that's the one we want. We want bootstrap.js, right? So and it's not under dist, it's under JS. So it's sorry, that was wrong. It's under dist.js. There we go. So it's scripts lib, and then it's bootstrap /dist/js/bootstrap .min.js. Okay, so that's that. Now how about our own? That's the one we forgot, right? Script and source is equal to scripts. And now this is the tricky part. What do I put in here? What? App.js, right? Because we cannot compile TS in the browser. It's got to be app.js, right? Because it only accepts JavaScript, right? So now this is the second piece. We've loaded in our Bower has helped us manage to get all the files we need. Our TSD has helped us manage to get all the typings we need to get code hinting. And now we have to attach everything to inventory index.html. You're going to see that when we do Node, we don't do any of this because we do everything is on the back end. You don't need an index.html file to run a server, right? Okay, so let's save everything and let's transpile again just to make sure that we're good. So I'm going to say Command-Shift-B, Control-Shift-B, and we've saved everything. And if I go back to if I've done this correctly, and if I go back to the web page and if I refresh, then I get app started. Tom says hello. If you do not get this, you've done something incorrect. And. Let's see, do we get code hinting now with jQuery, right? Because we put that stuff in. So if I go to my app.ts file, which is underneath my scripts folder, and if I start typing up here, just randomly, $document, take a look, .ready, look at the code hinting I'm getting. I'm getting full support for jQuery, right? Which is, guys, this is like huge, man, because no browser and no IDE anywhere other than anything that uses TypeScript right now gets support. We're doing something so complex, and I'm not going to have support for it. I'm not going to have, code coloring, code hinting, any kind of IntelliSense. Are you kidding me? That's crazy, right? And that's why I use TypeScript with everything I do. I never, ever use JavaScript anymore on its own. Not because I don't want to use JavaScript, I don't know JavaScript, right? But because, why? Why? If I've got support, I have a whole system to support me. And as we're moving towards ES6, when we get more support for ES6, ES6 is TypeScript. If you learn TypeScript, you know ES6. It's almost identical, right? That's good. That means you know the latest and greatest JavaScript right from the get-go. All right, so this is really, really good stuff. There's one thing else I want to tell you before we stop for the day, and it's around variable declaration with JavaScript. We declare variables in JavaScript. What's really happening, right? And I want to ask this question because some of you may not know this answer. What's really happening when we declare a variable down here? It's actually doing something called hoisting. So I'm taking this variable down here, and in the back end, when it compiles, it puts it at the top. Why is that a bad thing? That messes with your scope, man. Can you imagine if I declare a variable down here and suddenly it becomes up here? And what scope am I in anyway? What scope am I in right now? Am I in the global scope or am I in a local scope somewhere? Everything is global right now. There's nothing that's local, right? My class person is in the global scope, and so is my variable Tom. It's in the global scope as well, which means it exists in my browser. As soon as I attach it, and I attach my JavaScript, it's in my browser right away, right? And this is bad, because if I declare a variable, and if I declare the same variable later on, I'll mess up, right? So what we want to do in the latest version of JavaScript, ES6, is change our var to let. And what this does is it stops our variable from being hoisted from the bottom to the top. It'll prevent that from happening, right? However, I'm just going to let you know this so you're clear, right? If I was to transpile this code, it would accept it, but on the JavaScript side, it would still be a var. Why? Because I've specified in my compiler options, right, in my tsconfig.json file that we're targeting ES5. If I was to change this to ES6, right, just to check it out, right, so that's the latest version of JavaScript, which is not fully supported yet. And if I was to transpile back to the way it was, if I go back now to the JavaScript side, it maintains the let, because let is the new standard, right? And not only that, but take a look at my class. Did it disappear and turn into that gobbledygook? No, because it is ES6. And that's why I'm teaching you TypeScript, because I want to teach you the latest JavaScript, not the JavaScript that existed in 2010. Okay? Let's put it back the way it was, because it may not run in all browsers. It will run in Google Chrome, no problem. But it may not run in IE, unfortunately. Poor IE. Poor IE. Right. I'm kind of running over time, but remember that the one thing that's due by the end of the weekend, right, or the week today, let's say, I'll make it today, is your GitHub. So please, you have a lab that's due today, by the end of the day, let's say, 11:59 p.m. Create a GitHub account. Like I said, take a look at the lab up on Blackboard. All I need you to do is make one repository. I want the link to that repository in a text file, upload it to Blackboard, and you get 2%. Please don't forget to do that, or else you'll lose 2% for nothing. It's bonus marks. It's due today. So please get that done. Otherwise, guys, our setup looks to be semi-complete. And next week, we're going to get into, I said semi, because we still haven't done Node, and we still haven't done Mongo, and we still haven't done all the other pieces that we have to do. And we're going to continue to build. Just bear with me as we go. Okay? So I'll see you guys next week, guys. Thanks.